Hello everyone and welcome to the latest edition of Wanderers Way, the official podcast from Bolton Wanderers in association with iHeat, with myself, Derek Clark, and Super John McGinley. How's it going, John?
Very well, thank you, Derek. Very well, and looking forward to this one.
Yeah, we've got a cracker of a guest, your former teammate as well. Guðni Bergsson joins us all the way from Iceland. How's it going, Guðni?
All right, guys. Derek, John, good to see you, mates. You're looking good. You know, there's a heat wave in Iceland, about 18 degrees, so we can't complain. You know, there's a heat wave in Iceland, so things are good in Iceland, and I hope so. You know, same goes by with Bolton. The weather's been nice, yeah.
Wanderers Way, the official podcast of Bolton Wanderers Football Club in association with iHeat. Coming up.
You know, and there's something about Burton Park, you know, and when I came obviously from White Hart Lane and all the fanciness of the West, you know, and all this stuff, and you know, and a great stadium, of course, but this is somehow the different take on it, you know, the old bread and butter English football, Burton Park, you know, which had been there for obviously 100 years and all that, and you know, so. Built up pitch and the closeness of the crowd and the spirit, you know, and all the support we got, and it was a really difficult, you know, place to go to, but it had a really special feel to it, and I still regret it to this day. It's not still there, but you know, of course. Eventually, we then went to Reebok, as we know, and so. But that place was when it really got kicking. There was no better place, you know, to be and winning games than the good old Burton Park.
Talk us through that goal on Boxing Day '97, Guðni. That goal against Barnsley. What's going through your mind when you strike the ball? Are you just, is it a hit and hope, or talk us through it because it was sensational?
I thought, what the heck, you know, and it was like. Something, I think 41 yards out or whatever, and it took a while to, you know, move all those yards.
Measured it himself, like 41 yards.
Yeah. Well, funnily enough, I remember, you know.
Wanderers Way, the official podcast of Bolton Wanderers Football Club in association with iHeat. Are you keeping busy, Guðni?
Yeah, I am. I'm working as a lawyer back home, but involved with football in various ways, if you like, both with my old club and we've got an Icelandic football academy as well, which we run. A few of my old teammates with the Icelandic national team, and so you know, you try to keep busy, and of course. You know, football is such a big part of your life, so I'm always in some way involved in football, and of course, you know, always following Bolton, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. Lots to talk about. Your time at Wanderers, of course. Before you signed though for Bolton, you started out your career with Valur in Iceland, and then you made the move to Tottenham. Back in the 80s under Terry Venables at the time. Can you tell us about early life growing up in Iceland and how that move to England first came about?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't really a common thing, you know, to go from Iceland and to play professional in Europe, you know, in those days, because we had this foreigners rule in Europe, as you remember, John, and so there could only 2 foreign players play in each team. So it wasn't very common for players from Iceland or any other country to go abroad and then play abroad. But I mean, I was brought up in a sporting environment. My father played handball and football as well, and you know, I started relatively early on training both handball and football, and you know, from the age of 10, and so you know, that was just a way of life, and you took your time as most possible you could to you know, go out with your mates and play football. I mean, the facilities back then, I mean, now we've got artificial grass and good facilities, generally speaking, in Iceland. For those days, it was a rarity to play on grass, and you played on gravel pitches, you know, and so it was a bit rough. But you know, as a young lad, you just love football, and you followed the English league, of course, and then my club Valur. And then So around 17, 18 years of age, I was fortunate enough to get my opportunity with my team Valor, in the top division in Iceland.
Yeah, and of course Tottenham come about. How did you have any interest from any other clubs at that point before you left for England, Guðni?
Yeah, actually I had. I went on a trial in '85 when I was 20 years old with Aston Villa, because there was a connection with Aston Villa from my coach then in Iceland, so English guy or Scottish guy actually, Ian Ross with an O, Ian Ross, and he had played for Aston Villa, and they were playing an Icelandic kit as well, funnily enough, in those days. So I was invited over for a trial, but it didn't quite happen. I done okay, but then obviously 3 years later, I got quite an unexpected opportunity to go over to Spurs and then train with them and then go on trial. And I hadn't really trained because I was then, the Icelandic season had stopped, so I hadn't really trained for 4 or 5 weeks, but I still had to go at it, and then went for that trial, and luckily enough, I got invited and offered a contract, which was a rarity really in those days.
Yeah, Spurs were packed with such talented players back then, Guðni. What was it like to share a dressing room with some of the big names? I mean, Gary Lineker was there, Paul Gascoigne was there, of course, as well, Gary Mabbutt. It was littered with top names, wasn't it?
Yeah, Chrissy Wadlin, and those guys, I mean, they were top lads and top names, and it was a big squad. There was a squad of 40 players, and a lot of them internationals, of course, in the starting 11, and we had sort of a core of 20, 25 really, really good players. But I tried to take it into my stride. I had played for Iceland. I was fit. I was physically ready for the challenge, but it was a big step from amateur football really to go straight to Spurs. But I couldn't believe that all of a sudden I was playing that White Hart Lane. So I mean, it was just a great opportunity and an adventure really.
And there was a decent fee as well they paid, wasn't it? Did you feel a bit of pressure going from Iceland? Because I don't think there was many Icelandic players at the time making a name for themselves, certainly in England at that point.
Yeah, it was a big fee for those days, like 350 grand. I think it was a top fee for amateur player, ever paid in those days. And so that wasn't the problem. Main thing was just to adjust to a different kind of environment, the competition. All of a sudden, coming from being the main man in Iceland, and then to have to fight for your place and then all the competition and all that, and the English banter and all that, it was a completely different environment. And you can imagine with Gaza there and all these lads, it was the stick and the banter you took, you just had to really, you had to really adjust to that as well. But it was, as I said, looking back, for a young lad, it was just great for me to be there at the top level of the game, if you like.
You still wearing the white socks and that then, Guðni, with the jeans? Is that what you were getting the stick for?
No. That's a long time, since we did that. It was more the Norwegian, the Icelandic. We were always, quite cool about it. So But of course, I got stick for the white socks, wearing flip flops with socks and all that.
It wasn't flip flops; it was Jesus sandals.
Yeah. Always the regular thing, and it was such a lively environment. And with Gaza, you could never know what to expect. And we got on really well. We lived in the same neighborhood, so we got to know each other, really well. And it was and Venables was fantastic, and we had exciting team. Typical Spurs, we won a cup, and we were threatening to do good things, but ended up in third place for one season, challenging. But it was a good schooling and a great opportunity for me.
Yeah, you'd have to be on your toes, like you say, Guðni, if Paul Gascoigne around. He's full of tricks and all that sort of stuff, but off the pitch, I'd imagine.
Yeah. I mean, and he just showed you, you have to enjoy life, and he was full of enjoyment and over the top sometimes and all that. But that's the way what the game is, and you have to. It's a pressure environment. But as well, you have to enjoy it. You have to enjoy the ride because you're one of the few, lucky enough to play at this level professionally. And I think, John, as you remember, you have to never forget to, it's a game and it should be enjoyed and don't let the pressure weigh you down, if you like.
The move to Bolton then, Guðni, because how did that come about at the time? Because, of course, you were looking to leave Spurs and Bolton come calling. Can you give us an idea how that move materialised for you?
Yeah, again, it was a little bit of a coincidence because Bruce Rioch told the story that he picked up that I was playing as a reserve game for Crystal Palace because they wanted to, have me over and offer me a contract. But there were some complications with Spurs because they had released me when I was injured and I had recovered from my injury. I had sort of a hairline fracture in one of my vertebrae, so I had recovered from that. And so Bruce, picked my name up, how he did that. Obviously, he was following everything. And so he came and had a look at me in the game. And from that, I was invited for a trial. And I didn't really, I didn't know that much about Bolton. And I hadn't really followed that much because you had been down a little bit, or we had, down the leagues a little bit. We were building, the team up. But, when the invitation came and I said, yeah, why not, I'll have a look at that. And I came to Bolton and instantly I took a liking to the place. It was a bit of a different world from London and Spurs and all that. Remember, John, we were training at halls and all that, and driving in our cars there and all muddy and wet and all that. But it was a great environment, camaraderie and spirit and all that. And I was eager to get back into the professional game because I had finished my law studies, and I came there and all the guys there, the banter and, the quality of the team as well and the position we were in, at that moment, fighting for promotion and going into League Cup final against Liverpool. So, it was just a fantastic way back for me. And I really took a liking to everyone and the place and the fans and everything. So it just went great.
You mentioned that the law degree, Guðni, when you conducted that sort of course when you were still a player, were you already looking to when you were going to hang up your boots and moving into becoming a lawyer when you finished playing, even when you were playing?
Yeah, I suppose so, because I grew up. My father was a lawyer, and you couldn't rely on being a professional footballer in Iceland. So it was just natural for me to seek after, seek my education, finish my education. And when I went to Spurs, I'd finished 3 years of my studies, and it's 5 years. So of course, when I had this bad injury and I was released, it was just a foregone conclusion to conclude the law study. So it wasn't that great plan. It just happened. So and I was lucky enough to be able to finish my law studies while I was at Bolton, my thesis and all that. And so it worked just perfectly for me. And for me, I was around 30 years of age when I came to Bolton in my 30th year. And I thought, well, I might have 2 or 3 years, 2, 3, 4 years. I became over 8 years, so it all worked out, incredibly well, looking back.
Tell us about your debut then, because it's quite something coming on in that League Cup final at Wembley. What's going through your head when you're told to get stripped and come on?
Yeah, it was great because we were that was my first game, and I was sort of working my way into the squad, if you like, and then we had a really good team and then playing well. So I understood that, and I was named on the bench, and to be at the old great Wembley Stadium but funnily enough, my last game for Spurs had been actually at Wembley in the semi-final against Arsenal in the League Cup. So to then come back 2 years later and play the first game at Wembley as well for Bolton on that occasion. And we gave them a really good game, John. Remember, it was a cracking game, and the atmosphere and all that, because Liverpool were a really good side, as we know. And, Tomo with that goal and our, fight back and all that. And we could have easily equalized. And we I think, made ourselves proud. And for me to be part of that, it was one of my, most memorable games. And it was just a great occasion. I saw this game a couple of years ago on some Liverpool sports station, and we played well, John, didn't we? It was a really good game.
Well, it was a good game, Guðni. It was that close. Really, it was that Steve McManaman made the difference for me in the game. He was absolutely outstanding in the game. But it could easily have been the Alan Thompson final, because Thompson scored a great goal. He also David James pulled an unbelievable save, tipped it onto the crossbar from him as well. And so it could easily have been the Alan Thompson final. It was that fine. There was nothing between the two teams, really.
Exactly. And it was amazing. And I was quite amazed when I saw this game, the quality of it, the pace of it, and from back to, from the back and then to the front, it was quality all round. And then we had a really, really good team. And it was just a pleasurable afternoon. Of course, you want to win those games, but we knew we did our best, and we were a touch unlucky. And, like you said, John, Steve McManaman had one of his better games, of his career. So that was perhaps the difference on the day.
Yeah. What was the dressing room like then, Guðni? Alongside guys like John and some big characters in the club at that point, wasn't it? Was it fun to come to training every day?
Yeah. They were great bunch of lads, John. John obviously was difficult, of course, but he had a great sense of humour, And then you had, Stubbsy, with his moaning on the pitch, but a great lad as well. And McAteer, Tomo, Branny, Aidan Davison, Jimmy Fillins, my really, really, good mate and friend, and Mixu, Sneaks, and all that, David Lee, and you don't know where to stop. Mark Batson, all these lads, it was a great bunch of lads. And I think, looking back, that camaraderie and that spirit of that side and the build-up, the revival of the club during the Bruce Weir era was, I think, a really fortunate of getting the end of it, into that. It was just a fantastic vibe around it, and don't you agree, John? It was one of the best group of lads I've ever been with in the game.
Without doubt, Guðni. I'll reiterate that. I think it's, you're blessed to have a job, I think, that where you can't wait to get in every morning. And the stories and the head tennis, and the camaraderie with the boys. Like you said, Big Stubbsy moaning. Big Stubbsy moaned about moaning.
Yeah, he was. And I remember I answered him, said, I just gave him a really sort of earful back, and he was a bit shocked, because I was relatively calm and polite guy, although I was a competitor, but it was just the way he was. But nothing personal. He just had to moan about everything, and it was so funny. But yeah, it was that spring was just so eventful, with those 2 Wembley appearances and all that, and the way we were playing football and approaching it, and the supporters, the fans, were really into it as well. It was just like a big unit of people together, not just the players, but the backroom staff, the manager and everyone together, and it was just a great time, I think, in the period.
Well, it was that time, Guðni, where as you said, it was one. The whole town was one. The club and the town. We were such a bond together. You knew many of the fans personally. You knew them, if not by name, you knew them by features, by face, and you felt a responsibility, didn't you? Because of that as well, to the town. Certainly.
And the respect to it as well, and getting it, how big part of the culture it is for in a town like Bolton, their football club, it's their life and all that. And you have to respect that. And as well, you are representing something, some of value to a lot of people, and you have to respect that and show them respect. And as well, when you do that, you find that as well, you get that feeling, you know, that you're so well supported that you know, it helps you on the pitch as well, doesn't it? You know, so that was, you know, that was the spirit of the club I came into, and the town was I loved and still love, you know, today. So it was great. And we need to recapture that feeling. You know, we need to get back there. We can, I'm sure.
Talk to us about the play-off final, Guðni, the win over Reading at Wembley that season. What an incredible game to come from 2-0 down to win 4-3. What's your memories of that day?
Yeah, I mean, it was a roller coaster of a game. And we were, you know, I don't know what we were doing in the first half. You know, we were absolutely, you know, terrible and you know, conceding 2 goals, soft goals, and we were just like, we were a little bit numb. You know, Wembley can have that effect on you, you know, and it was a warm day and all that. And we just didn't do ourselves justice. And then, of course, you know, Branny just saved us. You know, if it would have been 3-0 down, it would have been a really, really, you know, mountain to climb. And it was difficult enough, you know, with 2-0 down, but remember, John, you know, Bruce and Toddy, you know, or Bruce, the reaction at halftime with the tactical changes, and, you know, we were calm and we were focused, and we came into the second half a different team, you know, and we were chasing it and they were defending, and somehow after 2-1, in my mind, there was never any question we were going to win that game. And so we did, and it was again, you know, the way we went about it and finished the job. I think it was just a testament to what we were about. You know, it was character, it was determination, and togetherness, and as well, you know, tactical awareness, and it just paid off, and it was a fantastic afternoon.
I think fitness as well, Guðni, because as you well know, Bruce, I mean, we worked hard. Every day in training, we worked hard. There's no doubt about that. And we always finished games strongly. You know, and I think that stood us in good stead, certainly in that game. Because we ran Reading into the ground, really, in that, especially going into overtime, into extra time.
Exactly, and it goes a bit back from that, John, because I've seen the old games, you know, the cup wins against, you know, Arsenal and Liverpool and all that, you know. And it just shows you, you know, if you somehow create that ethic and you know, and you're really fit and you've got the and you've got the somehow conviction, you know, within the team, and you know, and you can certainly move mountains and do things like when we beat those big teams at that moment in time towards us, and so this was you know, the final sort of acknowledgement of that revival, that we were back in the top league in the Premiership, and what a great way to achieve that, by the way.
Yeah, but you sad to see Bruce go, Guðni, at the time. Was he a big influence on you?
Bruce?
Yeah,
of course. I mean, I think it took us and the club a little bit of time and a team to adjust to that, you know. And I'm sure, I think if Bruce would have kept on with us, I think we would have stayed up, you know, in the following season. We started okay in the autumn in the Premiership, the first few games, but then we sort of tailed off, and you know, there was this thing with joint managership with Roy McFarland and Colin Todd, of course, and that needed to be adjusted. And the latter part of that season, you know, we got like 20 points, so we'd have stayed up. But it took us time to get over that. But you could perfectly understand that Bruce, you know, had to take that challenge on, you know, but we had a good team, but there was perhaps lack of. We somehow needed to get our sort of act a little bit together and adjust to a new management on that, and then we did it in the end, but it was a little bit too late. So you know, we didn't stay up, but I was, of course, like most people, sad to see Bruce go, of course.
Yeah, I think that would have been the case, John. If Bruce had stayed around, he would have given a better shot.
I think, like Guðni said there, I think, you know, it took us 6 months probably. It took us till Christmas time until, you know, obviously Colin took it on his own right. Colin went forward on his own in his own decisions, and I think then things changed for the better. up until then, there was too much indecision. You know, it was too flimsy, really, where you had two joint managers. Nobody really knew who to go and speak to. Nobody knew if you had a problem, who do you go and approach? If you approach one, you're undermining the other. It just didn't work, did it?
Yeah. But we had some good games, remember, against Blackburn and Chelsea at home and Arsenal and all that. And then somehow we lost our focus and lost our shape and all that. Then there was, like John, you said, indecisions and we didn't quite gel well enough for a real challenge. But the second half of the season we were quite a lot different and then played really well. But it was not to be.
And probably, Guðni, the fact that we finished the season strongly, albeit we got relegated, sadly, but because we finished strongly, I think it set us up for that following season, because we could have easily felt sorry for ourselves and had a poor start to the season, but we hit the ground running, didn't we? And it was it was a huge season for us that season.
Yeah, exactly. I agree with John, and on that note, we came into the next season and there was, again, it was a great season for us, and we all remember it well. You guys playing so well up front, and you and Blakey, John, and then the whole team as such, and we missed a few players, as we remember, Stopsy and Jason went and all that, but we adjusted. And again, I think because sometimes, we talk a lot about Bruce and of course Big Sam and all that, but Toddy did some really good stuff for us as manager, and that team, and again as well, Phil came in and of course was the number 2, Phil Brown and all that, and he played a big part as well. But that, I think that spirit and the character of the squad and possibly a little bit of a different approach, but still, that season, the way we played was I think a really, really a good season for us and a good period, which I think all the fans still remember fondly, don't they?
Well, without doubt. Colin had us playing some unbelievable football. Not only successful in winning football, it was entertaining as well. And,
exactly.
Guðni, to this day, I say to everybody, really, you had a choice with that team. You could either come and play football against us, or you could come and fight us. We could do both.
Yeah,
and,
exactly.
And that was it. And I think it's a testament. The dressing room is a reflection of your team on the pitch. And like you said, the dressing room was just unbelievable. And when you've got a good dressing room, things are going to be right on the pitch. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, definitely. We've got in, big Jerry Tackett and all that, and those guys, and so we could take good care of ourselves, and Chrissy Fairclough and all that. And the only thing with me, I was a little bit injured that season, and I was being played at the right back. I didn't like that, but I took it for the team, and of course you did, and I could do that defensively, no problem, but you do that for the team, and it was the winning run we went on, the way we did it. And remember, John, as well, when we met, we played against Spurs in the League Cup, and we just polished them like 6-1, and it was such a good team we had,
Should have been 7-1. There was a goal disallowed as well.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, exactly. And Sol Campbell against Blakey, he didn't stand a chance, did he?
No.
Blakey, when he was on his game, he was a handful, wasn't he?
He was unplayable at times, and that was a good Spurs side as well. There was Chris Armstrong, Teddy Sheringham, Sol Campbell, Colin Calderwood at the back. They had a decent side.
Yeah. But they didn't fancy old Burnton Park, the dressing rooms and the showers and all that. They thought, where are we? And then all that. We just, you're at Burnton Park and you just got, whipped.
But again, no, Guðni, how special was Burnton Park on like a cup night midweek under the lights?
Oh, and there's something about Burnton Park, and when I came obviously from White Hart Lane and all the fanciness of the West, and all this stuff, and a great stadium, of course, but this is somehow the different take on it, the old bread and butter English football, Burnton Park, which had been there for obviously 100 years and all that, and sort of built up pitch and the closeness of the crowd. And the spirit, and all the support we got, and it was a really difficult, place to go to, but it had a really special feel to it, and I still regret it to this day. It's not still there, but of course, eventually we then went to Reebok, as we know, and so, but that place was, when it really got kicking, there was no better place, to be and winning games than the good old Burnton Park.
Special place, tell you.
Yeah. Talk us through that goal on Boxing Day, 97, Guðni, that goal against Barnsley. What's going through your mind when you strike the ball? Are you just, is it a hit and hope, or talk us through it, because it was sensational?
Well, thanks very much. Appreciate that. It wasn't a really, I've seen it loads of times, but it's almost funny because I think, as I remember, the Barnsley manager just called, I shoot and all that, because the ball was running away from me, and that's even more difficult to have a proper strike. It's easier when it comes, towards you to have a powerful strike. But I thought, what the heck, and it was like something, I think 41 yards out or whatever, and it took a while to, move all those yards.
Measured it himself, like 41 yards.
Yeah. Well, funnily enough, I remember, you could almost have a sip of beer and then just, talk to them. It took some seconds before the goalie realized he was in real trouble, and then obviously hit the top corner. But it was ridiculous goal, 1 in 100. But you had to have a goal, so in the end, it got us a point. There was a 1-1 draw, but it was memorable, and for a good old centre half to score a goal like that, it was pretty special. So yeah.
You got a few goals like that in your career. You scored a few goals. Don't worry about that.
Yeah, I was a little bit when I got into my strike, because I used to play as a young lad as a striker, because I had pace and power and all that. So it was a little bit there. But I remember one season when we got promoted, actually, I scored 10 goals, which for the centre half was good. So yeah, we all like to score, John. Not many score as many as you have, but it's the greatest of feelings, isn't it?
Best.
Yeah. Talk to us about Sam Allardyce when he arrived, Guðni. What was your first impressions of him? Because the club was sort of changing, and he was ahead of his time, Big Sam, wasn't he? But what was he like to work with?
Well, I knew I had met Sam a couple of occasions and all that, and I knew of him, of course, and the big character he was, and nice to have a pint with, of course, and then before he became our manager, and I think because there was a question whether Phil Brown would take over as a manager. He had that interim games of 3 or 4 games and done okay, and so he had the rightful claim to become the next manager. But then they decided on Sam, and he came in, and of course it was a different approach in many ways from Toddy's management, and he was, as he is, big guy, big character, and with strong opinions, but it was. I mean, it took us a little bit of time to get used to it, the different approach. So we didn't start too well off with him under his management, but then when we, started to get our act together, and obviously were defending well, organized, difficult to beat, and all that, and we started to get that team going. And Sam, of course, his strength is his character and man-to-man management. And as we know, bit by bit, we built up a new team, new approach, and we became a force to be reckoned with, and so it was obviously a great step for the club to get his services there.
Yeah, what was? I mean, we've had Ricardo Gardner on the show, and he spoke of a sort of togetherness that Sam was very good at that, making everyone feel like they're one part of a big family sort of thing. Was he good at that and feeling everyone involved?
Yeah, I mean, he was, but we had that as well as a club. We always had that, togetherness and camaraderie. So, and he had obviously played for Bolton and was sort of a adopted Bolton lad. So he came straight into that and again built up a really good, backroom staff. Of course, Phil was there, and they were working well together, and all these characteristics was related. New from the team, started to develop, and so for me, because I played just as as a centre half onto him rather than sometimes a fullback, because I liked and all that, and he was just a no-nonsense guy.
Yeah.
But he had this vision about building up the club, from bottom up. So all the sports science, and the medical department, and bit by bit, this all came together. So we created this possibly you could say, sort of third team which I was part of, during the club, and it became just stronger and stronger.
Yep, they started playing tunes out on the park here. There's a charity game going on, so I'm not sure if you can hear that, Guðni, but they've started blaring out tunes on the tannoy. But we crack on anyway.
They're just lining up. They're lining up, Guðni, for
hopefully they'll turn it off in a wee minute
for a game.
Are you playing, John? No,
I played on Monday, Guðni.
Oh, did you? How did it go?
It was like internal staff. So it was all right, to be fair. We've got a boy. We've got a boy in the office. Good, he's here actually. Rob, he scored a hat trick.
Okay.
Oh, he's magnificent. One of the best performances I've seen all season.
It's called. I remember the charity match we played, together 3 or 4 years ago.
When you done your hammy after 7 minutes.
Yeah, no, 9 minutes.
9 minutes.
But I got that leg, and no one realised, because somehow, and it was embarrassing. I had to hobble off and all that. And
don't worry about it, Guðni.
Yeah. So we need to get together again and play a match, John. I would like that.
We're due. We need to get, before we get too old, we need to get a game in before they're wheeling us out.
Yeah, definitely, we're pushing it. So let's get it on, John. I'm with you on that.
So tell me, you've obviously come in, right, and you've joined. With Eidur Gudjohnsen come in, obviously, done really well for us. Arnar Gurlagsson come in, scored a lot of goals for us, left. We've had nobody since.
Yeah, and I used to, back in the day, now a few years back, when Iceland national team was developing into a really good team. And I remember with Sam and Phil Garside, bless him, and I was saying, well, I think you would be well advised to have a look at those guys and invite them over, perhaps, or get them quite cheap now while they're sort of, before they become famous, if you like. And but I was never sort of taken up on that, and fair enough. But I think there's a pool of talent in Iceland and as well in the Nordic countries. I think will suit our team well. Yeah. You know what you get, John. It's we had all those Nordic players, obviously with Per Michael Johansen and Bo Hansen and Henrik Persson, and then my Icelandic friends. Eidur Gudjohnsen. How good was he, and how good did he become, and Arnar Gurlagsson as well. So, I think that was as well, I think, a nice feel for me as well, being an Icelandic player, to, and I think we gelled well into those, the camaraderie and the spirit, of the club. And I believe like Jón Daði, who came recently, of course, and did really well for us as well, so hopefully we can see some more Icelandic players in the future. I would really like that. But recruitment, and the decision-making about, obviously, recruiting players, getting the right manager, director of football, etc., etc. You know, all these football decisions, as we know, are so important, and you know, of course, we need to get them right.
Well, we need to get them right. We need to get some Icelandic players in the squad as well, I think, Guðni. As you said, the work ethic's fantastic. You just touched on Per and Michael Johansson. You know, when them two boys walked in the dressing room, what a difference they made to us. I mean, they were fantastic.
They were great players. They were great players, and I think, you know, and as well, it's not just about the individual talent, but how you come into a team and really, you know, support each other and become a team member. That's so important, and that, I think that is where, you know, and the work ethic with the Nordic players in general is our strength, and then you got the skills of Eidur and Michael Johansson and you know, all these guys. I mean, they were great skillful players, Per even and Arne Laxen. And so you know, hopefully we will get that right in the future.
What's the talent pool at this moment in time in Iceland, Guðni? Is there players out there that have impressed you? Is there people worth coming to see?
Yeah, there are quite a few players. There are quite a few players now playing in the top leagues, and we've got 5 or 6 players playing in the top 5 leagues in Europe. You know, there's a striker in Real Sociedad who's really good, and then a guy at Lille, you know, a small guy, attacking midfielder, and quite a few players, others. And so we're creating, molding a new team, you know, Icelandic team, which might compete in future, like we did. Like remember, you know, against England in 2016 when we beat them in the Euro final. So hopefully we can achieve something like that. And then it's quite amazing if you think about the old population, you know, 350 up now to 390,000, you know, and so it just shows you what can be done. And so I, for one, would love to be in some sort of a cooperation with the club and help out if I can recommend players. And I've already been approached by the club in getting some sort of a collaboration with my old team, Valur and Bolton, and if we can build on that and get the best Icelandic players in future, of course there will be an asset to the club, I think.
Well, it'll be good. It'll be good to see. Hopefully that'll take shape in the near future.
Yeah, so. Because and I would give myself an opportunity to come back, because you know, I would have liked to be a little bit more than I have been in the past now in recent years, but you know, Bolton is always such a big part of me, and you know, I love the place, got some good friends there, and you know, and you want to keep that connection, and we need to play that game again together as well, John. So we need to get something sorted.
Get something sorted. Well, you know, you're always welcome, Guðni. That goes without saying. God's sake, you're unbelievably popular still in the town. You know that, and everybody would love to see you.
Yeah, I would, you know, hopefully I'll be back soon, and you know, it's just a special place, and as I said before, you know, we want to get back there. You know, we want to get back up there, because we if we get it right, okay, of course it's never easy, but still, you know, given the size of the club, you see what's happening in the Premiership. You know, we've got Brighton, Brentford, Bournemouth, etc. We've got smaller clubs than us, you know, in the Premiership, and of course we can achieve that, and we can go into Europe again, and it's not going to be easy, but first things first, you know, go into the Championship, and from there obviously into the Premiership. But if we get the football decisions, whether it be with the manager and director of football right, etc., and the recruitment of players, you know, without a doubt, we can thrive again and flourish in the Premiership, and I'm sure that will be, and hopefully in the near future.
Well, we've certainly come close, Guðni. First and foremost is getting out of League One. You know, we found it a very difficult league to progress from. Hopefully next season, you know, with Steven Schumacher now on board, and you know, hopefully he's going to change things around in the summer, bring in some players that's going to suit his system and the way he'd like to play. And that's going to make a big difference to us. So I think we're all ready for a big push next season, and hopefully for promotion.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I like the look of him. I don't know that much. You know, of course, I know about his career again with Plymouth and Stoke, But something about them was alike. I mean, Ian Abbott had a good period for the club as well, but then somehow it tailed off, as we know. But now, with a new director of football, Harkin, he's got a really good CV as well, and good experience behind him, and Sharon Britton on the board, etc., etc. So we all have to pull together, and the fans, coming to the games, and the supporters. We've got a really healthy attendance figures, as we know. And that is really, a big difference. And I think if the supporters see, that spirit which we had back in the day, and we can create that again, that togetherness and hardworking, well-organized and this successful football team, they will obviously really come and support us, and we will be back up there again.
Guðni, talk to us about that playoff final 2001 at the Millennium Stadium. Thrashed Preston, of course, a great day down there. What was that like to play in?
It was a funny match because it never really, I thought, got going somehow, because we had an early goal. It was a great venue, of course, Millennium Stadium and all that, and we had sort of gone into the playoffs and we got there. We were going to make it happen now because we had been, in two previous years, just a little bit short of going there and going all the way through. But we had an early goal with Gareth Farrelly, and then we just, it was controlled match, and I thought we were always the stronger team in that match, and they didn't really create that much, Preston, and in the end then we had those two late goals for, was it Michael Ricketts and Ricardo, I think.
Must have been a special game. You said it was a bit of a weird game, of course. He scored early and two late goals, but it must have been a great feeling to get back up into the top flight after two sort of near misses.
Yeah, it was, and I think we felt that we should be up there again, and we had two attempts before, and then this third attempt we managed to win in the end quite comfortably against Preston. But it wasn't saying that it wasn't a comfortable game, but the scoreline obviously was 3-0 in the end, and it was again, it was so good just to be back where we wanted to be, and I remember that occasion, and it was just that sense of achievement, and I remember lifting the cup with Big Sam. I had to tussle with him because he didn't really want to release the cup, and so we lifted the cup together, and it was I think for everyone involved and the supporters, a great day out, and we were back in the Premiership again.
You played for a couple of more seasons, of course, but did you always? There was always talk about you hanging up the boots, but you kept on going. When you eventually retired, was that a sad time for you when you decided to call it a day?
Yes and no. I had almost taken 3 hours to retire because the family had gone home. Initially, when I did, I was year by year contract, and it was, and I was. And then I decided, okay, I have to retire. I want to retire when I was ahead and playing well and on my own terms. And it was just so important, and especially to leave the club in a position where we were in the Premiership, and we had a good future ahead of us, and the team was going well. It was important to me, and all the way right through to the last game, just like my time with Bolton, we were always, either fighting relegation or fighting for promotion, and and that game against Middlesbrough in the end was such a huge game for the club and for myself, my last game. And, to end on that note was fantastic. But I'll tell you what, I really struggled then in the autumn because, I missed it. I missed the club, the atmosphere, the people and the players and all that. And Big Sam tried to get me back, and I was really, really close coming back. But But in the end, it wasn't to be because the team really picked up as well. So I said, I've been 3 years trying to retire, and my family is obviously back home in Iceland. And, I just had to leave it. And we said it. And, I was 38 then. So it's good to retire and quit while you're ahead, if you like.
Yeah, well, it's been an absolute joy to watch you in action, Guðni, during your time. You gave great service to Bolton. It's been a pleasure having you on the podcast as well. So thank you very much for giving up your time to have a chat with us.
Thanks very much, guys. And, pleasure's all mine. And keep up the good work. And it was a privilege being a Bolton player. And the club is always close to my heart. And I wish everyone all the best. And I hope to see you soon.
Thanks, Guðni, and all the very best, pal. Good to speak to you as normal, and hope to speak to you very soon.
Okay, cheers, John.
Thanks, Guðni.
Wanderers Way, the official podcast of Bolton Wanderers Football Club in association with iHeat.